Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jason Jensen, and you're watching Jason Jensen Trains, where I welcome all modelers into my shop and show you firsthand how I do model railroading. In today's episode, we are going to work on painting some boats for the harbor. Well, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and be sure to click on that bell up in the corner so that you're notified when I upload more videos. Alright, well, let's head over to the workbench and get started on it. So today we're going to paint some boats, and the boats are from rustyrail.com. So we're going to work on these, and they do come apart. They're in sections. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our knife and just clean them up a little bit. They're pretty good, but they do require just a little bit. You can see like there's a thin plastic in the window. Simple enough to cut out. And then we can take our flat file and just clean up those windows. Just so we can get in the corners good. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do all the cleanup on these, and then I will probably wash these with warm soapy water. Then I'm going to put a gray primer on all these pieces, and then we can start to paint them. So I spray painted everything with a gray primer. Next, I'm going to put a wash of black over it so that it goes into all of the cracks. What I'm using for the wash is black acrylic paint and Windex. This was on clearance for $4.26. You can buy really a cheap brand, maybe even at the dollar store. But I'm mixing that with the black acrylic paint instead of water, because I believe it's going to help it get more into the cracks, where the water, it tends to sit more on the surface and not go into the cracks as well. So that's my theory behind it. So we're just going to go over the entire piece with it. Hopefully you can see that, where it's really getting into all of the cracks and really showing the detail. And if you've made your wash too thick, as you put it on, you can actually spray the boat with the Windex. Just spray it, and the black will then just go into all of the cracks. I made my wash pretty thin, so I'm okay so far. Okay, I'm all done with the wash. Now I just have to sit and let these wait for them to dry. But man, the detail that you can see now is really, really great. You don't want to use a blow dryer on this. You want that paint just to sit in the cracks and all just settle slowly into the cracks and let it dry by itself. So don't use a hair dryer on these. So real quick, I took slate gray and did some dry brushing over the parts, just so that I could really see where all the details are. I think it's going to help me paint it even better, knowing exactly where all the details are. And I think I'll actually be able to do some maybe washes at first with some browns, and then after that dries, do some dry brushing. But I just wanted to give you a close-up look at some of the incredible detail on these. And then I plan on putting some lobster traps on these, and figures, and maybe some more rope, but adding as many little details as I possibly can on these. Alright, so let's get painting these finally. Here are the brushes that I'm going to be using. I got these at Michael's. I got them a while back, so I think they're under $20, and then if you use a coupon for 40% off one regular priced item, you're probably looking at $1 a brush, maybe just a little bit over $1 a brush, so it's a great deal. But that's what we're going to be using. And then let's see, for paints, we'll light taupe, raw sienna, desert sand, maybe some Mississippi mud. The first thing we're going to start with, let me move these. The first thing we're going to start with is all of the wood. The wood on the decking, and say the wood on the sides here. So that'll be the first thing. So let's start by using, this says number 5 on it. And I'm going to start with light taupe. And we'll put some raw sienna next to it. We're not going to mix them yet. And then we'll go ahead and put some of the Mississippi mud by it too. Okay, so that'll give us a good variety of color. I put just a little bit of water in it, and it's okay if you get to paint on other stuff like this detail part here with the rope. That's fine, because we'll clean that up later with, we'll paint it the color it's going to be. So now I'm just lightly going over it, so that it doesn't really get into the cracks. Just going over the top of it. So we'll add a little bit of water to our Mississippi mud. So we just don't want it all to be solid. So I'm just going back and forth between all 3 colors. And some of this will be, actually a lot of it will be covered up. So don't spend too much time on it. Then if you want to go in and paint, say, some individual boards. Okay, we'll let that dry and we'll move on to painting the rest of these. Then after this dries, we'll come back in and do some dry brushing of desert sand. Okay, so I've gotten all of the wood painted, and now I'm going to make a wash of burnt umber and just add a little bit of burnt umber here and there. I felt like these colors that I had on the palette were a little too light maybe. I wanted to just add a little bit of a dark here and there. So again, I'm just doing some individual boards. So it may look kind of striped right now, but the next step will be to dry brush it. And that will blend it all together. We're just wanting to really make it look like individual boards. And by doing different shades of brown over the individual boards, it'll really help create that illusion. Okay, next we're going to dry brush it with desert sand. So you want to wipe most of the paint off your brush. We're going to load the brush so that it's completely covered in paint. Then we're going to wipe it off. There's still paint on there, just not a lot. And then very lightly to start with, and we're actually going to start on the back. So as you can see, there's most of the paint is now off of the brush, and you can start to scrub it. Now if you want to, you could use a gray. I'm trying to see if I have a gray handy. Pale gray. You could also dry brush a little pale gray over it too. And you can see they're both pretty light. It probably won't show much of a difference on camera, but I will show you. Next, we're going to paint white on the bottom of the boats, or the lower section. And I have this vintage white. It's getting kind of old, so it's kind of thick. So I think I'm going to go with light buttermilk. As you can see, I mean, they're about the same. But you could use antique white. There's a whole bunch of different possibilities. But I am going to use light buttermilk. And I'll probably go pretty solid with this. I think it was pretty important, or is pretty important, for a real boat to keep up with the outside of it, so it would look pretty nice. Might be a little dirty up towards the top. Okay, so I have finished all of the white. I am going to take light taupe and do just a little bit of dry brushing on the white, just towards the very top. Nothing down low. Have to be careful that I don't have any wet paint on my hands. Just across the very top. So I just went along the very top edge just to represent maybe some dirt, some worn paint, but the bottom, most of it is all a solid white. So we're going to paint our metal, and I am using a number 1. So first we'll cover all of the metal with the raw umber. And then we'll go back in and maybe go in with some metallics. And then add some rust. So I'll go through and paint all of anything that's metal, the raw umber, and then I'll show you how we'll add some metallics to it and maybe some raw sienna for some rust on it. Next, I'm going to paint the trim around the edges, and I'm going to use light avocado. I tend to use this color a lot for green. I just really like it. So now we're getting into some smaller detail, and we need to be a little bit more careful. We're kind of having to paint around certain things. Now there is some white on the edge, and what you can do if you want to makes it a little easier. So I'm lightly sanding it to get it back to take off some of this white and get it back down to the gray primer. You don't want to sand too hard, otherwise you'll get it back down to the white resin. It definitely takes some patience to paint these boats, but if you take your time, you'll get a really great result because the models are pretty detailed. And again, don't be so concerned about covering it with just one coat of paint. The coat I'm putting on now is kind of light. It's definitely not solid. After it dries, by the time I do this side, I can go back to the first side and put another coat on it. And if you get a little bit of the green onto the white, you know, after they're all done, after you're done putting green on all of these boats, then go back with your white. I found it kind of saves time. Say if I get green on it now and I grab another brush and do my white and keep switching back and forth, it just eats up some time, I believe. Better to do all your touch-up with your white all at once. So I've made some more progress on the boats. And what I'm doing now is I'm using gunmetal gray, and I'm going over all the areas that we painted with raw umber. So I don't know if you can tell, but on the front here I've used that gunmetal, and around the edge on this metal frame a little bit on the pipe on the back. So I'm just doing a little bit here and there. And then if you want to, after this dries, you can go in and even on, say, the corners, take metallic silver, like here's a silver, and we can put some small little highlights on it. And then I think I'm also going to add some rust. So I'll show you on this. Just going to go on the top and then do a little bit of dry brushing on the edges here. I'm using, as you can see, a very small brush. And there's some bolts on here on the side. We'll highlight those. I'm just running my brush sideways on the edge. So again, I'm just sort of doing the raised areas on all the metal. And then if you want, like I said, you could do very small highlights with the silver. So I'm adding some figures to the boats. These two figures on here are from Prizer. And the netting I got from Model Tech Studio. And I did complete my wash of burnt sienna on the tops. On my figures, you'll see this figure here. This is from Model Tech Studio. And it's a little bit shiny. You could spray a dull coat on it. What I do is I do a little bit of painting on the figures. So for this one, for the yellow, I am going over it with, this is antique gold. So it really just dulls down, makes it look maybe a little bit dirty and worn. I did the same on these two figures also. I went over their clothes with deep midnight blue. I put black on their hats. It really dulls it down. And also I think it makes it match the boats a little better. It makes it so that they blend in better. Everything is hand painted. So it's not a huge difference, but it definitely dulls it down. And like I said, I think it helps blend it in with the boats because it's hand painted. You certainly don't have to hand paint all your figures, but I think it just helps blend it into the scenery a little bit more. So that's it. That's all I'm going to do. It's finished.
Now I'm going to take my file to the bottom of his feet really lightly, just to level it out and give a good gluing surface. And I'm just using testers glue for plastic. And I think I will get out my box of detail parts and maybe add some more. See if I've got some lobster traps, some more barrels, maybe little crates. So I'm adding some details. I've got some lobster traps here that I've got to paint that I'm going to put on here. I got some crates, barrel. I put another barrel up front. I haven't glued on the roofs yet because I may light the inside of these. Well, the boats are finished. And you can see on this one, I added all the rope. Now, I used white. I believe in real life, it's black or really dark gray. I used white because it shows up better in photographs. And that is the only reason why. If you want to put black string on there, go for it. I did end up putting a wash over the white. I thought it was a little too stark, and I just used neutral gray and added a lot of water to it and went over the bottom. You probably really can't notice on camera, but it dulled it down some. And then I also put that same wash over this boat on top. It was just a little too white, so I just wanted to dull it down. I took slate gray and dry brushed over the tires. They were just a little too black, just solid black. So and I am leaving the tops off in case I decide I want to light these. Then once I get them placed, I can drill a hole through the center and down through the layout and run my wire up and put a light in it. And then I also did some dry brushing over the green to make it look like it's the paint is chipping off. And again, these two figures are from Prizer, and the netting is from Model Tech Studio, but you could also just go to a craft store or a fabric store and buy netting. It's netting like what they use to make wedding veils. I am very excited to go and put these on the layout and see what it looks like sitting on the water. So that is it. Again, these models are from rustyrail.com.
I hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, the boats are from rustyrail.com. Be sure to check out their website. They have not only just boats, but they have amazing detail castings. They have other kits. They have small structures. They have amazing detail, and they're all resin, very easy to work with. As you saw, I just put a primer on it first, and then just start to put on your color. And a good rule of thumb when you're painting their kits or castings, or really anything, is to have at least 3 values. So you have your main color, then you have a darker shade that's going to go into all of your cracks, then you have the lightest shade, which is going to be for all of your highlights. So be sure to visit their website and pick up some castings and give it a try. I think a lot of it is just getting past that fear of maybe not being able to do it or messing it up. And it just takes practice. The more you do, the better you get. So thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. And I really appreciate hearing feedback from all of you. So be sure to leave comments in the comment section below. Alright, thank you so much, and I will see you next week. Happy modeling, everybody.